The sound that filled the kitchen was not the gentle hum of a refrigerator or the morning chirp of birds, but the percussive, angry thwack, thwack, thwack of a knife against a wooden board. My mother, Eleanor, was dicing an onion with a surgeon's precision and a dictator's fury. The air smelled of expensive coffee and unresolved tension. "Your grandmother," she said, not to me but to the universe as the final cube skittered away, called the landline at 5:47 a.m. The landline. Who does that? To tell me her television remote had gone sleepy? She swept the onion into a bowl with the blade. "I have a board meeting in 2 hours that will decide the fate of a $12 million merger. I do not have time for sleepy remotes." This was the house of Sterling, not a home, a house, a pristine magazine-covered testament to my father's real estate success and my mother's curated taste. Here, emotions were like fingerprints on stainless steel, swiftly wiped away. Kindness was a calculated variable, not a reflex. My grandmother, May, with her flour-dusted hands and loud, unfettered laugh, had never quite fit in. She lived 45 minutes away in a cozy, cluttered bungalow that smelled of cinnamon and old books, a place my mother referred to as the time capsule. Later that afternoon, the scene shifted to my Aunt Sarah's sun-drenched patio. I was there under the guise of a casual visit, but really I was a spy behind enemy lines. Sarah sipped her Chardonnay, the ice cubes clinking like tiny warning bells. "The emergency alert pendant we got her," Sarah said, swirling the glass. "She uses it to summon Mrs. Henderson from next door for bridge. It's a cry for attention. Honestly, she's already lived long enough. It's time we stopped pretending her heart is still in it." The words hung in the air, crystalline and sharp. I felt a cold nausea rise in my throat. It wasn't just the casual cruelty, it was the finality. The ledger was being balanced and Grandma May was being found wanting. In that moment, I saw my family not as successful, driven people, but as emotional ghosts haunting their own lives. I felt like the only one left with a pulse. So I started to visit. Not out of duty, but rebellion. I went to Grandma May's bungalow where the clock on the wall ticked a slower, kinder rhythm. Our first shared meal wasn't a dinner but a Wednesday lunch, grilled cheese sandwiches cut diagonally and tomato soup from a can, the kind with the red and white label. "Your mother used to love these," May said, her hands mapped with delicate blue rivers, dipping her sandwich corner into the soup. Before she decided processed was a dirty word. She winked, a flash of her old spirit. The steam was hearty, the cheese a glorious, stringy mess. It tasted like childhood. The stories began to flow, not as structured narratives, but as fragments surfacing in the quiet. She showed me how to polish silver with baking soda and a soft cloth, the rhythmic motion unveiling the rose pattern on an old creamer. "This was my mother's," she said, her voice soft. "We used it every Sunday. Your great-grandfather would say the cream was liquid gold. He drove a milk truck, you know, got up at 3 a.m. every day for 40 years. I began to see the resilience in the mundane, in the way she saved butter wrappers in a jar in the fridge to grease pans later, in the meticulously darned sock she was working on, a skill born from the Great Depression. "You don't just throw a thing away because it has one hole," she chided gently. "You give it a second life." One rainy Thursday, the test came. Her hands, stiff with arthritis, fumble the jar of maraschino cherries. It shattered on the linoleum, a sticky, scarlet explosion of syrup and glass. "Oh, fuss and feathers," she whispered, her eyes filling not with tears for the mess, but with frustration at her own failing body. Without a word, I got the broom, the dustpan, the wet cloth. I knelt beside her. "You know," I said, picking up a sliver of glass, "Mom would have a conniption. She'd call a hazardous waste team." Grandma May let out a wet chuckle. "She was born in a hurricane, that one, always making her own weather." We cleaned in comfortable silence, the only sound the rain on the roof and the soft ting of glass in the pan. The climax wasn't a medical drama. It was a Tuesday. I found her at the kitchen table, an array of faded envelopes, a battered recipe box, and a single worn leather wallet laid out before her like sacred relics. "This," she said, placing her palm on the wallet, "is your grandfather's. He was a simple man, a good man." She opened it. Inside, no credit cards, no fat stacks of cash, just a yellowed photo of her, young and smiling, a dried four-clover leaf, and a single crisp $100 bill tucked in the billfold for decades. "He had a saying, Silas," she said, using my name, which she so rarely did. He'd say, "May, the world runs on two currencies, money and mercy. Always carry a little of both, but spend the mercy first." She tapped the $100 bill. This was his test money. He said if you ever found yourself needing to spend this, you'd already have spent all your mercy trying to avoid it. A reminder to always lead with your heart. She pushed the wallet toward me. "I want you to have it, not to spend, to remember." Then she opened the recipe box. "And these," she said, "for your mother." She pulled out a card spattered with ancient stains. In her looping script, it read, "Eleanor's favorite, oatmeal raisin cookies." "She's so busy building her empire," May said, her voice thick with a love that had endured every cold silence, "that she forgets she was once a little girl who stood on this very stool and licked this very spoon." She handed me the card. Its edge was soft as velvet from years of touch. "Give this to her. Maybe she'll remember the taste of belonging." I drove back to the Sterling house, the wallet and recipe card on the passenger seat. My mother was in the kitchen, not chopping but staring blankly at her phone. The board meeting, I later learned, had not gone well. The merger was off. She looked for the first time in my memory small. I didn't say a word. I simply walked to the pantry, gathered flour, oats, raisins, cinnamon. I preheated the oven. I began to measure, following the stained instructions. Cream the butter and sugar until light and fluffy. The sound of the hand mixer was alien in this silent space. My mother watched from the island, her silk blouse incongruous against the domestic scene. "What are you doing?" she asked, finally, not with annoyance but with genuine confusion. "Spending mercy," I said softly. When the first tray went in, the smell began to change the air. It was no longer just the sterile scent of cleaner and ambition. It was the warm, forgiving, caramelized aroma of brown sugar and butter. It was the smell of a stool in a sunlit bungalow kitchen decades ago. I pulled the tray out. The cookies were perfect, crisp at the edges, soft in the middle, each raisin a tiny, sweet punctuation. I put one on a small plate and slid it toward her, along with the stained recipe card. She looked at the card. Her breath hitched, a tiny, almost imperceptible sound. Her finger traced her own name in her mother's handwriting. She didn't pick up the cookie. She broke off a piece, put it in her mouth, and closed her eyes. I saw it then. The fortress walls, built brick by brick over a lifetime of striving, didn't crumble. They shimmered just for a second, like a mirage. A single tear traced a path through her perfect foundation. She didn't weep, she just sat, letting the taste act as a time machine. "She thinks I've forgotten," my mother whispered, her eyes still closed. "I haven't forgotten, I just got lost." I placed my grandfather's wallet on the table between us, open to the $100 bill. "She remembers everything," I said, "and she's still giving us the recipe." My mother opened her eyes. They were different, clearer. She looked at the wallet, then at me, then at the cookie. The millionaire in her fortress of success had left her mercy on the table for so long she'd forgotten it was there. She thought she was testing the world with her strength, her indifference. She didn't imagine that the waitress, the one she'd dismissed as a nuisance, the one she'd written off as having lived long enough, was still and had always been patiently holding her seat at the table, ready to serve her a reminder on a chipped plate of who she really was. She reached out and took my hand. Her grip was firm but not frantic. It was an anchor. The connection wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet as a falling leaf, solid as a worn wooden stool. We didn't magically become a different family that night, but the hustle of our daily life gained a new, hopeful thread. My mother didn't unblock Grandma's number. She drove to the bungalow. Now, sometimes the smell of those cookies drift from our sterile kitchen. My Aunt Sarah, bewildered, even asked for the recipe. The true wealth was never in the wallets we strove to fill, but in the simple, stubborn acts of preservation, the saved butter wrapper, the darned sock, the stained recipe card. It was in the mercy we spend first, even when we think we have none left to give. For in the end, the only inheritance that matters is the one that fits in a worn leather wallet or a battered tin box, the unbreakable currency of memory, the resilient taste of love, and the quiet, desperate, beautiful hope that it is never, ever too late to come home.